Hi everyone, it's Lizzie and welcome to my first book review of 2018. I have created a bit of a plan for a schedule for myself and my uploads for this channel this year, and that includes uploading one book video and one gaming video every single week. And so for my first book video of the year, I decided to choose Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. So in this video I'm going to discuss Ready Player One, which will include a bit of a review, but don't worry, I'm going to stay spoiler free throughout this video, so if you haven't read it and you want to, or you're looking forward to seeing the movie, I will not spoil anything for you, don't worry. Hopefully that is the correct framing. So my battery just died. Great planning, I know, but apologies if the framing has changed. Ready Player One was published in 2011, but I didn't know about it until maybe midway through last year when someone recommended it to me. Unfortunately, my headspace was not somewhere where I felt like I could fully enjoy this book, and so I didn't actually pick it up and start reading it until the end of last year, around my birthday, and I finished it early this year. Ready Player One is a sci-fi novel set in the year 2044. Humans have almost exhausted all of the Earth's resources so that famine, poverty and disease are widespread. However, in this dystopia exists the glorious utopia of the Oasis, the most incredible sounding, semi-interactable, virtual reality universe. In the opening pages, we're told that the founder of the Oasis, James Halliday, has died and he has left no heir. But he has programmed in a hunt which consists of finding 3 keys and clearing 3 gates in order to complete the hunt, which is also known as Halliday's Easter egg. Whoever wins the hunt inherits Halliday's fortune as well as the entire Oasis. Of course you have the bad guys, which come in the form of a competing company called Innovative Online Industries, otherwise known as IOI. Their motive for winning is to gain control of the Oasis in order to exploit and profit from it. And you also have the other players you're competing against, otherwise known as Gunters. The Oasis is always written in capitals because it is an acronym which stands for Ontologically Anthropocentric Sensory Immersive Simulation. Nailed it. Our protagonist is Wade Watts, and maybe because I was thinking that this sounded a little bit like a Mad Max situation with less desert and more snow, I thought that his name was Max, and so I continually referred to him as Max Watts, which is not his name. It's Wade. I'm not sure if Wade is 17 or 18 years old, because a bit further on in the book he says that he just turned 18 in the last month, but I'm not sure if a month has passed since beginning the book. He lives in a poverty-stricken area in Oklahoma and both of his parents are dead. So all of this information is divulged in the first chapter or so. The real story gets going when the mysteries of Halliday's Easter egg start to unfold. So the pros of this book for me were that every geeky and nerdy part of myself, which, believe me, make up the majority of me, absolutely loved this book. The entire premise, all of the 80s references, and the gaming was just fantastic. The world that Ernest Cline has created here is very believable and so tangible, and as much as this dystopia sounds incredibly horrible, I still want to go there because overall it's kind of amazing. While I was reading this book, it made me seek out a number of the references, whether they were ones that I had seen or listened to when I was much younger, and with the movies in particular I didn't fully comprehend. After watching them again now and hearing that music again while still in the middle of reading it, I felt just like so much more included, and that was something I really enjoyed about this book. As for the cons of this book, my biggest gripe by far was that I felt like it was too wordy. And I'm not talking about the word count because it is in fact not that long. My copy is only 372 pages long. What I mean instead by too wordy is that I felt like Cline had the tendency to over-explain, especially in the first half of the book, which is a shame because since finishing it, I have spoken to a number of people who have said that that made them stop reading. I was kind of glad they told me that because I still encourage them to persist with it, because afterwards it really picks right up. It just, at the start there was a little bit of a struggle. I reread whole sections because I felt like I didn't quite get it. Some people could say that's because you're dumb, but I feel it was because like I was told and not shown, which I used to hear so much in high school, but within this book I really got that and it was very obvious. In my opinion anyway. The book is split up into 3 parts, and in the first part, maybe the first half of it or the first 2/3, because it was told and not shown and it was explained so much, I felt like that confused me, which is why I found myself rereading sections within those first 2/3. I could mention a spoiler here, but I'm going to leave this as a spoiler-free review, but if you would like to know what it is, you can go and check it out on my Goodreads review. There's like a hidden section at the end of my review that you can click and expand and read that there. In reading some other people's reviews of Ready Player One, they have mentioned that there was a Deus Ex Machina that they felt was unnecessary or really didn't like about it. I'm tending to disagree with them because I feel like the book evolved and developed in a way that seemed quite natural, to be honest, and I didn't feel like it ended up being too convoluted. So I'm just throwing that in there as another little con because I can kind of see where they're coming from, but at the same time I tend to disagree with them. At the end of each of these videos, I'm going to ask myself 5 questions, and I feel like they could be quite interesting to kind of summarize the book. So, the first one is, what do I rate the book? I've given this book 4.5 stars because as much as I kind of finished the book and wanted to give it 5 stars, I also felt like I just couldn't overlook the overly explained parts in the beginning, and so I took off that extra half star. On Goodreads I have rated it 4 stars because they don't actually allow for half ratings, but in my review I've written 4.5. Who is my favourite character in this book? I think I have to go with the character Shoto. Shoto is definitely my favourite. I also have to give a shout out to the name H, spelt A-E-C-H. I thought that was a very creative name. When I first came across it early on in the book, I was like, what is this name? How do I even, like, what? You know in your mind when you're reading and you can't just skip over a name, so you have to give them something or pretend that that's what it is. So I was like, fine, I think your name is H. That's a little strange, but I'm going with it. Then it was explained that that was in fact their name and how you pronounce it. Since then, I thought actually, that's really clever. Like sure, you can have L, E-double-L-E, and you can have K, K-A-Y or K-A-Y-E, but H, it's a little strange. And I really like it. I mean, you couldn't have someone called R because R. What is my favourite aspect of this book? I think this one's an easy one to answer because I quite obviously have to go for the gaming, the adventure, and the references throughout this book just made it so enjoyable. Which character would I be? I think sometimes when I'm reading a book, it's really easy to identify with a character. In the books where you can't identify with anyone, it makes it a bit hard to relate to, and I find they're not quite so enjoyable. And then there are some that you can kind of relate to, but not 100% because that'd be a bit strange anyway, right? For this answer, I have to go with Artemis because I related to her a lot and I would like to be more like her because I think she's amazing and I really enjoyed her character. What is this book similar to? I've really just started getting into the genre of sci-fi, so I'm not that knowledgeable on it, but a lot of people have said that it's a lot like Ender's Game, which only makes me want to read Ender's Game, and so I can't really say personally what book this is like for me, but hopefully this will be an easier one to answer for others, and perhaps near the end of the year I will get better in the sci-fi genre. Now because this book has a movie counterpart that is coming out very soon, I believe it's the end of March for Australia, I'm not sure what its release date is for the rest of the world, but almost 2 months away now, which is kind of scary and exciting at the same time. So I'm just going to discuss quickly my thoughts on the movie. I find that with any books come movies, I used to get quite upset with them. For example, Harry Potter. I am a huge Harry Potter fan. I read all of the books multiple times and I couldn't wait to see them come to life. But when I did, I found myself disappointed in some aspects because I felt like some characters weren't what I imagined and they cut out scenes or parts of dialogue that I really wanted to see on the big screen, and that just, it took away from the movies for a little bit for me. However, I've now tried to get myself to think of the book existing over here and the movie existing over here as 2 completely separate things. I think if you kind of overlaid them in some way, their Venn diagram would have a number of overlapping parts, but there would be huge parts that were not overlapping. and just a lot of shades of grey. Because when you think about it, you can't take a book and make a script from every single page in the book. It can't be done. Some things just won't work in a movie and they don't make sense. So what's the point in keeping them? So the two are related, but they're not 100% the same. It can't be done. I think that that's a better way for me to enjoy the movie and book at the same time, separately. Having said that, I am really excited to see this book come to life. I think that visually it is going to be stunning. I think the movie is going to have a whole lot more action than the book did, because while the book did have a lot of action, it also had a lot of the overwritten parts and a lot of inner monologue and narrative from Wade's point of view, which doesn't translate in the movie. Unless you have a voiceover, it can't be done. So I think they're going to make up for that in having a lot more action, but also hopefully to improve the parts that I wasn't so happy with. No spoilers. So I didn't watch the trailer until after I read the book because I didn't want it to impede on the vision I'd already started creating in my mind upon starting the book. My biggest gripe about the trailer and the movie so far is that Max Watts is... I just called him Max. Wade Watts is portrayed as a thin, everyday, average-looking teenager. Don't get me wrong, I'm actually really excited and on board with the actor they have cast as Wade. I think he just fits really well. I think that was a good choice. However, before starting this book, I had in my mind that Wade was going to be a string bean nerd, but when starting it, he was described as an overweight nerd. I think I had in my mind that he was going to be a string bean because they lived in really poor conditions. However, his malnourishment that came from the high starch foods, the high carbohydrates, the high sugar foods from all their food stamps, as well as accessing the oasis for hours on end instead of, you know, a physical activity, contributes to him being overweight, which absolutely makes sense. And so I was disappointed in not seeing an overweight Wade in the trailer. I don't think I can judge just yet because I've come up with two kind of reasons why this might be. One is that the trailer hasn't used footage of when he's overweight because that would be too confusing to have the main character look two completely different ways in the trailer when trying to promote the movie. And two is that maybe he's started off looking that way from the beginning. And they could have done this because, now this is a very minor spoiler, as I've already said, Wade starts off overweight, but he does in fact exercise and get a lot healthier the more serious he gets about the hunt and finding Halliday's Easter egg. So I feel like in the movie they could have cut this out because to free up screen time for so much else that happens in the book and to fit it into a movie, I can understand how they might have cut out the montage of him getting fit and healthy. They might not even have him where he is when he takes on that transition. You can't just have him as overweight and then have him as slim because that makes no sense. You would need some kind of explanation in there, so maybe they just cut that whole thing out. Which is kind of upsetting, yes, but I do also understand it. The other thing I can see in the trailer is that there looks to be some kind of alliance happening, which is not in the book, but that could be taking place of Wade's inner monologue and that sort of thing. And so having some kind of rebel alliance within the Gunters kind of makes sense, and I understand why they would do that. This in turn means that there are new characters that I didn't recognize in the trailer either. The biggest thing, of course, in the trailer that I have noticed is that the atmosphere and the environment looks quite different to what I imagined. While that's kind of upsetting, I also understand this because it's so hard for sci-fi and fantasy films in particular to be portrayed on screen the way that every individual reader has perceived it. You can't actually do that. So the fact that the main character and some of the other characters I could pick out look the way I imagined is really just amazing already. So I'm still interested to see what the environment's going to look like and how the whole film's going to come together, and I am absolutely going to go and see it. I'm looking forward to it. I am scared because I'm not sure how much has changed, but I am really excited to see it come to life. Anyway, that is the end of my first book video of the year. Let me know what you thought of it, and have you already read Ready Player One, or has this video maybe made you want to read it? Or are you just waiting for the movie? Either way, let me know because I have read it, I have enjoyed it, and I am looking forward to the movie. If you have any recommendations of books you would like me to read and review, or ones that I perhaps have already read and you'd like me to review, please let me know because I am looking for recommendations and I'd appreciate your input. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my video on Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. If you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye! The Oasis is always referred to in capitals because it is an acronym which stands for anthropologically... That's not the word.